Redwood Lane was a kind of neighborhood people barely noticed. A row of modest homes, neatly trimmed lawns, and a quiet that settled over the street each night like a blanket. But on the evening of September 4th, that familiar quiet felt different. Several residents would later say the air felt heavier, the street unusually still, as though something was waiting to unfold behind those closed doors. At the center of that subtle unease stood the small, pale yellow house belonging to Mara Ellison, a 35-year-old mother of two and a well-loved community volunteer. Her porch light, usually switched off before midnight, remained illuminated long into the early morning hours. The glow was soft, but to those who passed by, it felt strangely out of place. Mara was known for her warmth, the neighbor who checked on the elderly couple during storms, the woman who organized school supply drives and brought homemade soup to families going through hard times. Her life appeared calm and orderly, but beneath that calm was a story she shared with almost no one. For nearly a decade, Mara had lived with Evan Ellison, her estranged husband, a man who, to outsiders, appeared polite, helpful, and even charming. He waved at neighbors, carried groceries for strangers, and maintained the image of a stable partner. But behind closed doors, their marriage had been slowly crumbling, strained by control issues, jealousy, and years of silent tension. Friends had recently noticed changes in Mara. Her once bright spirit had dulled, her cheerful demeanor replaced by a subdued weariness she tried hard to hide. Still, she continued to smile, continued to help others, as though maintaining her kindness might somehow shield her from the storm building in her own home. By the late summer of 2025, Mara had reached her breaking point. She had quietly prepared to separate from Evan, speaking with close friends about her plan, saving money, securing important documents, and arranging a support network for herself and her children. Her closest friend, Layla Harmon, recalled how Mara's voice trembled during their last conversation, torn between fear and hope. Mara planned to meet with an attorney and file for full custody within days. But Evan sensed the shift. According to later testimonies, he had grown distant in the week prior, his once carefully managed composure breaking through cracks of anger and desperation. The idea of losing control, losing Mara, gnawed at him. On September 4th, as the neighborhood settled into its nightly rhythm, a faint argument was heard inside the Ellison home. A neighbor walking their dog later described it as soft but tense, like two people trying, and failing, to keep their voices down. Then came silence. Hours later, around 3 a.m., a single figure was seen stepping out onto the porch, the interior light still glowing behind him. The figure moved with purpose, locking the door, glancing down the quiet street, and disappearing into the darkness. By sunrise, the yellow house stood still. The curtains were drawn. The porch light was off. And Mara Ellison, the woman who held a family together with kindness, was nowhere to be found. Something had happened on Redwood Lane, and it was only the beginning. Detective Mara Cade stood at the edge of the alley long after the paramedics had left. The blue glow from the police beacons washed over the brick walls, making the shadows look deeper, heavier, as if they were hiding more than just darkness. Aldous Street had always been quiet, but tonight it felt like it was holding its breath. The evidence team moved carefully around her, collecting fibers, photographing the scene, placing numbered markers next to faint footprints that led nowhere. Everything seemed too clean, too deliberate. Whoever had taken Elise Harper knew exactly what they were doing. Mara's partner, Detective Jalen Rourke, approached with 2 cups of coffee and the same worried expression he'd had since they arrived. Neighbors say they heard a car around 10:40, he said, handing her the steaming cup. Black SUV, no plates. Of course, Mara murmured. Can't make it easy. One detail bothered her most. Elise's bag was found neatly placed beside the dumpster, untouched. Inside it, her phone, keys, wallet. Nothing stolen. Nothing broken. No signs of struggle. It was almost as if she had walked into the darkness willingly. Jalen lowered his voice. Her brother said she'd been acting strange. Said she told him she felt like she was being followed for the last week. Mara's grip tightened on her cup. Did she tell anyone else? No. And her phone records show nothing useful. No strange calls. No messages. Whoever was following her stayed in the shadows. Mara closed her eyes briefly. She'd seen cases like this before, people disappearing with precision, no fingerprints, No fibers, no mistakes. But something about Elise's disappearance felt personal, intentional. A burst of static crackled from her radio. "Detective Cade, you need to see this. We found something in the security footage." Mara and Jalen rushed to the tech van parked near the scene. Inside, the surveillance operator replayed the footage from a camera mounted across the street. The timestamp read 10:39 p.m. Elise stepped into frame, walking briskly, clutching her jacket against the cold. She kept glancing over her shoulder, fear evident in her eyes even in grainy resolution. Then a figure appeared at the far end of the street. Tall, hooded, moving with calm, steady confidence. Mara leaned closer. "Freeze it," she said. The operator paused the frame. The hooded figure stood half in shadow, half in the blue wash of the street lamp. No visible face, no identifiable features. But something about the posture, the angle of the shoulders, felt familiar to Mara. "Play it," she whispered. The video resumed. Elise stepped back, startled. The figure raised a hand, not aggressively, more like a gesture of reassurance. She hesitated, then slowly approached them. "Wait," Jalen said. "She knows this person." Mara's stomach dropped. Elise wasn't running. She wasn't screaming. She walked toward the stranger like she recognized them. Then the screen flickered into static. The recording ended. The operator shook his head. Camera was disabled at that exact second, overridden remotely. Mara stepped back, pulse racing. Whoever this was, whoever Elise trusted, had planned every second. And they were still out there. Morning light crept through the blinds of the precinct conference room, painting thin golden lines across the stacks of reports. Detective Mara Cade hadn't slept. The dark circles under her eyes proved it. She replayed the surveillance footage over and over in her mind, Elise stepping willingly toward the hooded figure, the moment of trust, and then the sudden blackout. Jalen walked in carrying a folder thick enough to make the table groan. "Got something," he said, dropping it in front of her. "Background check on Elise. Nothing unusual. Teacher, quiet life, close to her brother, small circle of friends. But," he tapped the folder, "look at this." Mara flipped through the pages. Near the bottom was a printout of an old volunteer registration form. Elise had spent 2 summers working with a local outreach group that assisted at-risk teens. Normal enough. But the supervisor listed on the form made Mara freeze. "Evan Klain," she muttered. That name again. Evan had surfaced twice already, once in a neighbor's statement, and once in a vague online posting Elise had liked weeks earlier. He wasn't a criminal. He wasn't even a suspect. Just present, always in the background. And Mara knew from experience that people who lingered quietly in the background were usually worth looking at. "We checked him," she asked. "Already tried," Jalen said. "He left his job 2 months ago. No forwarding address. Phone disconnected. It's like he walked off the map." Before Mara could respond, the precinct tech officer rushed in holding a tablet. "Detectives, you need to see this." Elise's phone just pinged. Mara snapped to attention. "Where?" "Industrial District. An abandoned warehouse on Teal River Road. Signal was live for 15 seconds, then gone." Jalen grabbed his coat. "Could be a trap." "Or a cry for help," Mara countered. Minutes later, their unmarked car sped across the quiet morning streets. Factories loomed ahead, their steel frames cold and lifeless. The warehouse they sought stood at the end of the road like a forgotten relic, graffiti-covered and silent. Mara drew her flashlight. "Stay sharp." Inside, dust floated in the air like drifting ash. Their footsteps echoed across concrete floors. Old machinery lay rusted, covered in cobwebs. But something else waited in that space, something placed deliberately. A single phone, Elise's phone, resting atop an old crate, screen cracked but still functional. Mara approached slowly. "Why leave it here?" she whispered. Jalen scanned the surroundings. "We should call this in." A sharp beep interrupted him. The phone screen lit up with a video thumbnail. A new file. Timestamped 20 minutes ago. Mara tapped it. The footage showed Elise, alive, sitting somewhere dimly lit. Her expression wasn't one of terror, but of urgency. "If you're seeing this," Elise said, voice trembling but determined, Then they're closer than you think. Don't trust. The video cut to black. A metallic clang echoed from deeper inside the warehouse. Someone else was there, watching, waiting.